Hello viewers, welcome to my channel Science to Technology. In today's show, Camera Tuesday, we're going to talk about is red digital cinema camera evil? Because many people are coming to that conclusion recently. So I want to explain why the heck that is. So what made a red camera such a big deal? Well, this puppy started in 2005, so not very old camera company, around 18 years old at this point in time. And Red One was the first camera they introduced in 2007. This puppy. Now you have to understand, even back in those days, people figured out very early on is that sensor is not a problem. Either you had CMOS or you had CCD. And back in those days, people were trying to, for cinema level, they were trying to use 3 CCD or even 3 CMOS. You can see that in broadcast industry and cinema industry. So sensor was not the limiting factor. The reason why people did not want to use digital for basically film production is simply because the output for those sensors went poof because of the compression. So data storage was the limitation. And be mindful, what do you remember in 2007? Like what do you remember in early 2000s? Gigabyte was the big deal. DVD just came out. So back in those days, somehow recording gigabytes of data was just unheard of. So you needed some seriously good compression, and nobody had figured out, because that is back in those days. Like this is very early on. People had very hard time figuring those part out. So many earlier digital cinema camera did existed, and they were huge. The reason why they were huge, it was for the memory, not for other parts. It may look like, oh, it has like such a processing. Nah, it's just the memory. And some cameras were so huge, like the camera was this huge, and then they had a server rack just to record the data. That was the only way they can capture raw data. Because be mindful, sensor is not the limiting factor. Like in terms of resolution, color production, and all that jazz, sensor is never the limiting factor. It's always what happens after the data, or to that data, how do you package it? So Red figured out how to truly make that part work, meaning make a digital camera, that's the easy part. Store that digital data in a proprietary format, which we call Red RAW, in such a good way where it has all the benefits of RAW without having the idiotically huge size, and do that in cost-effective manner that randomly overnight they started to change the industry. So that's how they became the big deal, because they've cracked that puppy. Not the digital cinema camera, every company had that. It's just the fact that they made the luxury of RAW available in body. So you only had batteries, lights, monitors, and all that jazz, not like a server to record offsite, or the camera was like huge. They solved a lot of issues. So it was really good, and the price to specification was genuinely ahead of its time. So they had some good way, and then they started to do that. That's why if you compare Red to RE, you will always find Red always gives you far more for your money in terms of spec than any other camera company. So early years, like 2 years ago, people started to notice that Red may be just full of BS. Well, that happened from Red Mag, because you have to understand, Red started to use their own proprietary BS. And again, back in those days, it kind of made sense. But when they upgraded, they did not upgrade to something proper. They went to proprietary media format known as Red Mini Max. It was like, it's our Red magic. And unfortunately, people figured out they can open it. And once they opened it, it was like M.2 SATA SSD with DRM. Now, DRM part was the critical aspect, meaning even if you, let's say you bought, let's say 128 GB one, and you are like, okay, I'm going to open it up, throw this puppy away, put a very high capacity one in, and just plug it into camera. Earlier camera, you could do that. Then they realized that people are doing that rather than buying idiotically overpriced 512 GB ones. They are buying the lowest one and they're swapping it. So they started to tamper with the firmware, and camera got an update where they were like, check that signature. So they tampered with the firmware of the SSD, and that's how they checked it. And be mindful, this is the time where you started to notice Red cameras are not reliable. That's when that happened. Again, it's almost like how Nintendo had that security chip. That itself was the reason why, it was not always a reliable connection. Same thing started to happen here. It's like you can watch videos from LTT, Linus Tech Tips. You can watch it from Market Brownie. All those sort of creators who bought that and they were frustrated. It's like it did not just Red it, even though it was Red own system. And I'm not talking about people who tampered with it. I'm talking about people who directly bought it. It took them quite some time to figure that part out, because it was a very stupid decision of Red to, rather than investing in technology of making a redundant video recording, which, mind you, at this point in time, every camera company does, be it Sony, be it Panasonic, be it Fuji, be it Fujinon, be it whatever, Sigma, be it any Tom, Dick and Harry else. Everybody has like dual redundant recording. Red is like, F the customer. It does not give you dual recording. Not only it has proprietary media, it does not give you dual recording. Meaning, if anything bad happens, which does happen time to time, how often, that's not a not a point of contention, simply because it can happen. You plan for it. And if you are talking about any expensive scene, meaning you may like, oh, camera is expensive. No, in cinema shooting, camera is the free part. It's like chump change. Nobody even counts it. The talent that goes in front of the camera is expensive. And God help you if it's an action scene where you have things, particle effects and all, practical effects and all that just going on. Yeah, that you cannot do retake. So if you mess up the card, like if there was not two card or there was a failure occurring, bye-bye. Lot of money, poof. So Red started offering a service which was like, we'll do data recovery because F the customer, you know, F the customer. It's like, dude, why spend time in data recovery? Data recovery should be the last option. Like, you know, you have first line of defense, then you have second line of defense, then you last line is like data recovery. They were like data recovery. And it's like data recovery will not save you time nor save you productivity. Those things cannot be bought by money. So you have to understand this. And why the heck this all became such a big deal? It kind of blew up in 2019. This was happening long ago, but in 2019, the company Mac, they wanted to sell their own system, and they were kind of frustrated because they were replicating this puppy perfectly, but they had the issue because the firmware tweak they did, the quote-unquote DRM, they could not just sell it to customer and customer will get like user. It was not like SD card where it's like one SD card works just as well as another SD card. This was because of that proprietary. So they kind of made a video to exposing about it, and it was bad. Like, this was the time people were like, kind of like, wait a minute. Everybody knew it was expensive. Like, for example, this is the price today. When I'm making this video, I collected this data. They are charging $1,450 for 480 GB. That's a lot for SATA 3. Be mindful, no matter what you do, this puppy cannot exceed 600 megabits per second. Now, you may like, okay, they did it wrong. Is there a proper way of doing it? Because it's not only like, oh, this is wrong. What is the right way? I'll give you one simple example. Kfinity. This is a new camera company, exactly like how Red was. And they were like, okay, we're going to capture this amazing detail. We have to store it. And no easily available system can do it. Like XQD cards can do it, then CFast Express card can do it, but again, those are idiotically expensive per gigabyte. So the people who are buying this will go bankrupt. So they were like, okay, what is the easiest way to get high speed memory for low, meaning high speed, low price? NVMe, basically big daddy of this puppy. And they started to make this, King Mag Nano. Now, they realized this very early on. Whenever you are talking about something like this proprietary system, you also have to deal with the issue of having a card reader. Whereas like this mag reader, they have to do extra expense. You are paying so much for the camera company. They're like, hey, we'll make a proprietary hoo-ha, but we'll make it easy. For example, this you can buy directly off from the company. Company will directly give you for around $120 or $190 depending on country you are. And then you can put your own NVMe SSD, highest quality you can put, or highest capacity you can afford, or low cost enough that you can afford, whatever have you, put it in, put that puppy into the camera. Good. Now here's the, how do you pull the file out of it? You use USB-C. Yes, this puppy is an actual pen drive. You can't use it as a pen drive. As a safety measure, they have the ability to, like, basically you cannot read or write file. You can only copy files from it. You cannot tamper with the file. It's made as a backup option, so you can only tamper with the file in here. Delete, basically. You can copy, read, do whatever the heck you want. You can't edit the file, basically. So it has USB-C jack, and that's not also the cheapest jack. It's not a 5 Gbps jack, it's 10 Gbps jack, meaning you can put good quality NVMe SSD and you can enjoy that speed while dumping file into your computer. And that's 1 TB variant is available for $1,000, which has a full-fledged 10 Gbps USB circuitry and independently built system, because you're like, why didn't they just use NVMe? NVMe was not designed with hot swap in mind. So this contact pin, which is similar to M.2, will not withstand it again and again. So for that reason, like, that's why if you look at the pin diagram of SD card, it's a bit different. It's designed so it can be hot swapped. Or they have to use server grade SSDs. Those would be too expensive. So this was a good compromise. They had to create this independent board that does the contacting part. It can withstand the hot swapping. So you can see that, like, $1,500 for half the capacity of that puppy. That puppy is twice as fast and also has a card reader built into it. So if you have two of the magazine, you can pull out of the camera, give them to two laptops for making two independent backup simultaneously. And it's cheap. Meaning even you can use this and be like, after a while you're like, hey, you know what? I think I can add more high capacity, open this up, screw up, put a new NVMe in, enjoy. That's how it should have been done. Like, there's a point of every company wants to take money from you without giving you too much. Every customer wants to give you as little as money as taking as much as possible. That's life. But here's the deal. You always have to be like, hey, you take some, I take some. There has to be an ethical balance here. It's like, you take some, I take some. What Red was doing, which Jenny May kind of exposed it, where it's like, dude, I'm taking $150. Basically, the markup on these puppies were so high that they could have literally sold you one, have 3 cards, like after you bought it, they would have bought 3 cards, just put it on your name. Whereas like if you ever return this for warranty or anything, they'll just throw one away at you. It's like, and they'll still have $1,000 left. That's how much markup they had. It's like, dude, and why the heck, with that kind of markup, people expect that sort of thing in Mark 1 product. Mark 2 product, you should have had redundant recording. They're like, no, wouldn't it be nice if we F the customer? That's why, that's like, this has to a system. This has goddamn NVMe and a RAID 5, and it's a tiny company. And they figured this puppy out, which is cheaper. This was the time where people are like, Red, are you really good, or you're just like coasting on the fact that you figured out something very early on? Then we come to the part where people are like genuinely upset with it. That is minor annoyance. This is major annoyance because it affects everyone else. Is that Red Raw? They were the first company truly, or patent wise, depending how you see it, figured out how to have digital, okay, compressed, this is a critical aspect, raw recording. Meaning, the moment you compress it, does not become raw, but you can compress a raw if you have good algorithms. Somehow they got it. Now, how either their lawyers were really good or the patent office were really high that day, but somehow they have patent on this idea itself, not on the algorithm, but the idea itself. So their patent idea is like, nobody else is allowed to do in-camera raw recording unless they are directly paying Red, or Red will say just no, flat out. Basically, it's like if, let's say, Nikon comes to the digital camera market first, Nikon releases the camera and Nikon has raw footage, basically for, JPEG files, they're like, we have raw. And somehow they got patented the ability that's like, raw recording can only be done by Nikon. It's like, somehow that patented, like, again, I can understand it was too early on, maybe technical detail, wording is like too good. It's like somehow they have that patented. Many companies fought, be it Sony, be it Kfinity, be it Nikon, be it Apple. And Apple was like a bit convoluted because apparently Apple wanted to lose. That's why they lost, and they wanted that for that reason. So ProRes will become a very important system. It's a whole mess of thing. Only a lawyer can explain that. But other companies fought for one idea. It's like, how the heck you have the ability to, oh, nobody else can do raw recording in body. Not the algorithm part. Be mindful. Algorithm's supposed to be protected. That's the whole point of patent. But not the idea. It's like Tesla and Edison, they were having a battle of bulbs, light bulbs. Nobody could patent the idea of like electricity to light output, that's patentable. They're like, dude, what are you smoking? You can patent, okay, this is my structure, this is my, Edison screw structure, I'm gonna patent this. Edison is like, okay, that's my stuff, I'm gonna make money from that. Then Tesla is like, okay, that's good and all, but it's expensive. I'm gonna make a better, simpler design that works for low cost. That's the design. But again, neither of them can patent the idea electricity to light would be patentable. Somehow, Red does that. And this is the reason why you are not seeing raw recording in videos. Like, even on expensive one, even like Cine Ultra line, like what Red was wanting to do, they literally said it to the court where it's like, destroy, make Sony destroy every of Cine Ultra lineup. It's like, there is, even that was like, too much weed, bro, chill down. And Kfinity literally backed off. They were trying to develop their own system, they backed off. And if you ever heard, it's like Blackmagic does have their own raw, but it's not that good as a system. Again, they had to work around patents so much that it's like not useful. How the heck, the other company like RE does that? It does not record video. If you look at RE's raw file, it's not video, it's stills. That's how they bypass it. They have like, if you took 60 FPS video, it's like 60 images would be there. It's like every single file. That's how they bypassed it. Other companies are doing this. Basically, everybody hates Red for this. And this got attention. As of now, Nikon and Red is in battle. That started, I think, 2 months ago. And Nikon bought an algorithm from Tyco Raw. The algorithm is Tiki Raw system that allows them to do their own algorithm part. And Red is like, again, lawsuit, you are violating 7 of our patents. And Nikon is the first company that released it. Kfinity backed up before they're releasing. Sony created a bypass. Apple wanted to do that. And that's why, like, if you ever wondered how the heck this sort of puppy, tiny puppy, like a Ninja 5V, how the heck they had the ability to record a RAW, ProRes, all that jazz long ago, before your hyper expensive camera cannot do that? Patents. Red Raw. That's the whole thing. So right now, at this point in time, Nikon is the only company that allows you to have their own system without bypassing it directly. They are like, no, we do the same thing that you do. Digital compressed raw recording. Meaning in post-production, you can tamper with this puppy all day long and you will not have, visual fidelity loss. And Red's court filing is like, they are violating our patent. It's like, It's like if algorithm has been tampered, that's very easy to see. That's very easy to see. Like open the code, compare it, super easy. Compare the algorithm, super easy. But again, Tycho Raw is an independent company, and here's the interesting part: they already have patent. They have their independent patent, so we know that these two patents do not clash. So that's why I'm saying, like, even though on paper it looks like Red has some proprietary patent, it's not. Somehow they figured out patenting digital compressed raw recording in camera. That itself is patented. Somehow, like, it's like, but that's what they did. That's why we have to deal with this ninja recording way. Otherwise, every camera can have that. It's like, it's almost like how we still dealing with that 30-minute recording limit that European Union enforced. Thankfully, they have removed it. Same thing here. Everybody at this point in time wants Nikon to win. And again, Nikons have very good direction. And Nikon found a argument weakness in their system. It's like, dude, you filed a patent for something that you had already showed. You had to have patent. Like, there is a law that they violated. So Nikon is very confident that they could actually win. So this is why every cinema company, digital cinema company, is like, we really hate Red. And that's the reason for it. Like, we should not need this external recorder. So what we can expect in the future? Well, Red RAW patent will expire in around 2028 to 2025. There are many patents. All of them generally will expire in 2035. If I'm not mistaken, the core codecs will expire in 2028. Now, Red will work their ass off to renew it, and others will work their ass off to block it. So that will be interesting to see in 2028. Now, something good could happen. Nikon could win, and boom. That will be the most amazing thing, because if that happens, 2-3 years from now, we'll have cinema camera for cheap for us all. Every camera company can make cheap cinema camera. Be mindful, like we had micro four third camera that can do send raw data to recorder, and recorder can do ProRes and raw capture and all that. That's why, like, recently you must have noticed every camera now has like 14-bit raw output. It's like, what's the point of that output? Like, if you can output that, why can't you record it? It's just like law, patents. So, and again, patent on algorithm, that's awesome. Patent on the idea of doing things, it's like, what the hell were you smoking? So that's the whole point. If that happens, let's say Nikon wins, industry will start a whole new race, because right now in camera industry, photos have been sorted. It's like all you can do, bit better autofocus, bit higher burst rate. Like, we are sorted. Like, in terms of stills, we are sorted. But in terms of video, things remain. And that's the main thing that is holding us back. It's like, we cannot give raw. So if that happens, that would be a very interesting model where randomly will start everybody jumping into raw format, or maybe cinema DNG will finally become a system, because cinema DNG was designed as an open format. Nobody was using it, again, law reasons and all that jazz. So let's see if that happens. Now, what does it mean for Red? There's a very good chance the fact that Red went out of their way to attack Kfinity kind of shows me that Red was ahead of its time when they started. Right now, they are nothing. It's like they are just like, we are successfully blocking everybody else. That's why we are here. We are not like we are actually ahead of the curve. It's like Kfinity camera companies, again, it also had to deal with the fact, like, there is no memory that is cheap enough. They're like, hey, we're going to build a solution and we're going to make it cost effective while making a profit. Who would have thought of that? It has so many user interface functions where it's like, why the heck Red charges so much? It's like, Red is just like, F you. So at some point, people kind of realizing that Red may be just one trick pony. Maybe all they have is just that one thing that is forcing everybody else to stop. That's the only thing they have. And everybody else, again, they were ahead, but now everybody else is like, dude, this, let's say Sony FX3 could also do that. And again, memory system was no longer an issue for these companies also, because while SD card is limited, CFast Express cards are not. Those puppy directly run on NVMe algorithms. So fundamentally, they can go 1.2 Gbps. And even like, XQD type A cards, even though, XQD I'm saying, like CFast Express type A cards, those are also 900 Mbps. Those are still higher than what, Red does. So fundamentally, every camera can do that. But it's just that law. So let's see what happens with Nikon and Red. I genuinely wish Nikon to win, and Nikon really needs this win. If Nikon wins, Nikon could literally gain back a lot of market share. So let's see what happens. So this was my presentation on why many people are not that keen on Red Cinema Camera Company. Hopefully you have liked it, learned from it. In that case, please click the like button, share it amongst your friends. That will help me a lot. If you didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, I urge you to press dislike, press it twice to show me extra disappointment. Please leave a comment, because I do try to reply to all of them. Subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free, and as always, thanks for watching.